My name is Margaret. I'm 32 years old, and I thought I knew what family meant until last Thanksgiving. Growing up in Toledo, Ohio, I believed family was supposed to be your safe space, the people who had your back no matter what. I spent years being the perfect daughter, the supportive sister, always putting everyone else first. But sometimes the people closest to you can deliver the cruelest betrayal. What happened that November changed everything I believed about love, loyalty, and the price of standing up for yourself. Before I share what happened that changed everything, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Trust me, you'll want to hear how one phone call turned my family's world completely upside down. I grew up thinking I had the perfect family. My father, Ronald, owned Thompson Plumbing, a successful business he'd built from nothing in Toledo. Every morning at 6 sharp, he'd leave the house in his navy work shirt with his name embroidered on the pocket toolbox in hand, ready to fix whatever was broken in other people's homes. My mother, Joyce, taught 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary, and our house always smelled like the cinnamon cookies she'd bake for her students. Then there was Beverly, my younger sister. 4 years separated us, but it might as well have been a lifetime. Where I was practical and responsible, Beverly was artistic and free-spirited. She had these enormous green eyes that could convince anyone of anything, and curly auburn hair that never seemed to cooperate, but somehow always looked perfect anyway. Our family traditions were sacred. Every Thanksgiving, we'd drive 2 hours north to my grandparents' old lake house. The place was built in 1953 with creaky wooden floors and a stone fireplace that dominated the living room. Grandmother would spend days preparing the feast while Beverly and I helped set the long oak table that could seat 12 people. I remember being 10 years old, carefully placing the good china while Beverly arranged the autumn leaves she'd collected into centerpieces. Those were the golden years before everything got complicated. I was the responsible one helping Beverly with her algebra homework at the kitchen table, defending her when kids at school called her weird for carrying around her sketchbook everywhere. When she forgot her lunch money, I'd share mine. When she had nightmares, I'd let her crawl into my bed and tell her stories until she fell asleep. High school brought the first cracks in our family dynamic. Beverly's art teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, convinced my parents that Beverly had real talent, that she needed special classes and expensive supplies. Suddenly, every conversation at dinner revolved around Beverly's latest painting or sculpture. Meanwhile, I was working weekends at the local diner, saving every penny for college applications. College widened the gap even further. I earned a partial scholarship to Ohio State, but it wasn't enough. I worked 3 jobs to cover the rest, sleeping 4 hours a night between my shifts at the campus bookstore, the pizzeria downtown, and weekend catering gigs. I lived on ramen noodles and determination, studying business administration because I wanted to build something solid, something that couldn't be taken away. Beverly, on the other hand, got the full parental support package for art school in Columbus. Tuition, housing, supplies, even a monthly allowance for creative exploration. When I called home exhausted from pulling another all-nighter, Mom would update me on Beverly's latest gallery showing or the professor who'd taken special interest in her work. "Beverly needs more support right now," Mom would explain when I asked why they couldn't help with my textbook costs. "Art school is so competitive and she's still finding her voice." I graduated summa cum laude with a business degree and landed a junior marketing position at a mid-sized firm in Cleveland. Beverly graduated with a fine arts degree and moved back home to focus on her art. That was 4 years ago. She was 28 now, still living in her childhood bedroom, still calling herself an emerging artist. My career took off quickly. I had a natural talent for understanding what made people tick, what motivated them to choose one brand over another. Within 3 years, I'd been promoted twice and was managing a team of 6 people. I bought a condo in a trendy neighborhood with exposed brick walls and huge windows that flooded the space with light. I tried to include Beverly in my professional world, inviting her to networking events where she might meet gallery owners or art collectors. She'd show up in paint-stained jeans and combat boots, spend the evening sketching people instead of talking to them, then complain that everyone was fake and pretentious. "These people don't understand real art," she'd say during the drive home. They just want something that matches their couch. I stopped extending the invitations after she told a potential client that his company's logo looked like corporate vomit. But I never stopped trying to help in other ways. I bought her art supplies for birthdays, and Christmas promoted her work on my social media, even commissioned a painting for my office. Looking back now, I realize I was trying to buy my place in the family. Every gift, every gesture, every sacrifice was my way of proving I belonged, that I was worthy of the same love and attention Beverly received effortlessly. October brought an unusually cold snap to Ohio, and with it Mom's phone call about Thanksgiving plans. I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when her number flashed on my screen. "Margaret, honey, we've been talking, and we want to do something special this year," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Instead of the lake house, we're thinking of renting a cabin in the Smoky Mountains. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" I immediately perked up. A family vacation sounded perfect, especially after the stressful year I'd had at work. "That sounds amazing, Mom. When are we going? I'll need to request time off." "Thanksgiving week, of course. We're thinking 4 days, Wednesday through Saturday." Her voice carried that planning tone I remembered from childhood, the one she used when organizing school fundraisers or coordinating neighborhood potlucks. "I'd love to help with the arrangements," I offered, already mentally calculating costs and logistics. "I could research cabins, maybe find something with a hot tub, and I don't mind covering my share of the rental." There was a pause. "Oh, that's sweet of you, dear. But Beverly's already looking into places. You know how she is with these creative projects." That should have been my first warning sign. Beverly had never planned anything more complicated than a pizza order in her entire life. But I pushed the concern aside, focusing instead on the excitement of a real family vacation. Over the next few weeks, I tried to get details about our trip. Every time I brought it up during our weekly family dinners, the conversation would shift to other topics. When I asked Beverly directly, she'd shrug and say the plans were still coming together. "Don't worry about it," Dad would add, reaching for another helping of Mom's pot roast. "Beverly's got everything under control." I started noticing other things too. Whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Beverly scrolling through her phone during dinner, smirking at something on her screen before quickly closing it. Mom and Dad exchanging glances when I mentioned the trip. But I rationalized everything away. They were probably planning a surprise for me, maybe celebrating my recent promotion. Or perhaps they were being secretive about the cost, because they knew I'd insist on paying more than my fair share. The week before Thanksgiving, I called Mom to nail down the departure details. I'd already packed my bags, bought thoughtful gifts for everyone, and cleared my schedule completely. "Mom, what time are we leaving Wednesday morning? I want to make sure I'm ready." Her voice sounded strained. "Oh, well, there have been some minor changes to the plans, honey." "What kind of changes?" "Nothing major, just logistics stuff. Beverly's handling all the details." I tried calling Beverly next, but it went straight to voicemail. When I texted the family group chat asking about departure times, the silence stretched for hours. Finally, Beverly responded with a cryptic message. "Plans are set. Don't worry about it." That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. But I told myself I was overthinking things, that my family wouldn't deliberately exclude me from something this important. Tuesday night, I texted the group chat one more time. "Excited for tomorrow. What time should I be ready?" No response. Thanksgiving morning dawned gray and cold, with the kind of bitter wind that cuts right through your jacket. I loaded my car with carefully wrapped gifts and the overnight bag I'd packed with hiking clothes and cozy sweaters, perfect for a mountain cabin. I drove the familiar route to my parents' house, the same tree-lined streets I'd traveled thousands of times growing up. The neighborhood looked different somehow, more worn than I remembered, with several "for sale" signs dotting the front yards. Their driveway was empty. No cars, no signs of life. The house looked shut up tight with all the curtains drawn, and yesterday's newspaper still lying on the front porch. I sat in my car for a moment, checking my phone for missed messages. Nothing. I tried calling each of them again. Every phone went straight to voicemail. Using my spare key, I let myself into the house where I'd grown up. The silence felt heavy, almost oppressive. The kitchen counter, usually cluttered with Mom's cooking preparations for any holiday, was completely bare except for a single piece of notebook paper folded in half. I recognized Beverly's handwriting immediately, the same loopy script she'd used for school projects and birthday cards. Gone to cabin. Decided 3 was better company. I read it 3 times before the words sank in. 3, not 4. They deliberately planned a trip for 3 people, which meant they deliberately planned to leave me out. My hands shaking, I called each of them again. Every phone was turned off or blocking my calls. I walked through the empty house looking for more clues, but they'd clearly planned this carefully. There were no travel itineraries left behind, no hint of where they'd gone. I drove to the neighbor's house, Mrs. Patterson, who'd lived next door for 20 years. She answered the door in her bathrobe, clearly surprised to see me. "Margaret, I thought you'd gone with your family." "Gone where?" "To their vacation. I saw them loading up Ronald's car early this morning. Beverly seemed so excited, laughing about something while they packed the trunk." The image of Beverly laughing while they abandoned me hit like a physical blow. This wasn't a miscommunication or a mistake. They'd planned this betrayal and found it funny. I drove home in a daze, still hoping there was some explanation. Maybe they'd left another note at my condo. Maybe this was all an elaborate misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew the truth. My family had looked at their Thanksgiving plans and decided I wasn't welcome. I spent the afternoon conducting my own investigation through social media. Beverly's Instagram story showed a beautiful mountain cabin with 3 people visible in the reflection of the window. The caption read, "Perfect family time with the people who matter." Mom's Facebook check-in revealed they were in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. 4.5 hours away, probably at some cozy cabin with a fireplace and mountain views, eating the Thanksgiving dinner I'd been dreaming about for weeks. Each social media post felt like another knife twist. Dad's picture of the dinner table set for 3. Mom's photo of Beverly carving the turkey captioned, "My talented daughter taking charge." Beverly's selfie with both parents, all of them grinning at the camera like they didn't have another daughter who was spending Thanksgiving alone with a frozen dinner. I tried to call them throughout the afternoon, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. "Mom, please call me back. I don't understand what's happening." "Dad, did I do something wrong?" "Beverly, please just talk to me." By evening, I discovered they'd blocked me on all social media platforms. Every attempt to view their profiles showed the same message: "This content isn't available right now." The betrayal was complete and calculated. They hadn't just excluded me from their vacation. They'd erased me from their digital lives too. I sat in my condo that night, surrounded by the gifts I'd bought for each of them, trying to understand how the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had decided I wasn't worth including in their lives. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Beverly's smirking face in that window reflection, heard her laughter as they loaded the car without me. By sunrise, I'd made a decision that would change everything. I was going to drive to that cabin and demand an explanation. The GPS showed Gatlinburg was 4 hours and 17 minutes away. I threw some clothes in a bag, grabbed my car keys, and hit the road before I could talk myself out of it. The drive through Tennessee's winding mountain roads gave me time to rehearse what I'd say. Maybe they'd realized their mistake and were frantically trying to reach me. Maybe Beverly had pressured my parents into this, and they were feeling guilty. Maybe there was still a chance to salvage our family relationships. I used the rental property website Beverly had screenshot on her Instagram to track down the exact address. Smoky Mountain Retreat Cabin number 14 with 3 bedrooms and a hot tub overlooking the valley. 3 bedrooms. They'd literally booked accommodation for exactly the number of people they wanted to include. The cabin was everything their social media posts had promised. Rustic wood exterior wraparound porch, warm light spilling from large windows. Dad's rental car was parked in the gravel driveway next to a newer sedan, That must have been Beverly's latest acquisition. I sat in my car for 10 minutes gathering courage. Through the windows, I could see movement inside. The silhouettes of my family enjoying their perfect Thanksgiving evening without me. Finally, I walked up to the front door and knocked. Dad answered, and the expression on his face when he saw me was one I'll never forget. Not surprise, not joy, not even guilt. Just annoyance. "Margaret, what are you doing here?" I was left behind. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I came to find out why." Beverly appeared behind him, and there it was, that same smirk from the window reflection. She crossed her arms and looked me up and down like I was an unwelcome salesperson. "How did you even find us?" she asked. "Your Instagram posts weren't exactly subtle." I looked past them into the cozy cabin interior. Mom was sitting on the couch staring at her hands, unable to meet my eyes. "Can I come in? Can we talk about this?" Dad stepped aside reluctantly. The cabin was beautiful with exposed beam ceilings and a stone fireplace crackling with warmth. The dinner table still held the remnants of their feast wine glasses and dessert plates scattered across the wooden surface. "We needed a real family vacation," Beverly said without preamble. She positioned herself between me and the living area like she was protecting something precious from contamination. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means we're tired of pretending," she continued, her voice gaining confidence. "Tired of walking on eggshells around your judgment and your need to control everything." I looked to my parents for support, for someone to tell Beverly she was being ridiculous. Instead, Dad nodded slowly. "Beverly's right, Margaret. You've changed since you got that promotion. Everything's always about work with you, about money and success." "That's not true." My voice cracked. "I work hard to build a good life. I try to help all of you." "Help?" Beverly laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean show off?" Every conversation turns into Margaret's latest achievement, Margaret's new promotion, Margaret's perfect condo. Mom finally looked up from the couch. Her face was flushed from wine and embarrassment. "Maybe it's better if you just go home, dear. We needed this time together." "Time together without me," I said. "Time together with your real family." Beverly stepped closer, and I could smell the wine on her breath. "Finally, you get it. You're not really family anymore, Margaret. You're just someone we're related to." The words hit me like a physical blow. Someone we're related to. As if 28 years of loving them, supporting them, prioritizing them above everything else in my life meant nothing. "We needed this time without your negativity and judgment," Beverly continued. "Without you making us feel bad about our choices." "What choices?" "Living at home at 28, taking money from Mom and Dad, while I work 60-hour weeks." "See?" Beverly turned to our parents triumphantly. "This is exactly what we're talking about. The constant criticism, the superiority complex." I looked at the three of them standing there united against me and realized I was seeing them clearly for the first time in my life. The parents who'd raised me to be responsible and hardworking while enabling my sister's dependence. The sister who'd taken my protection and support for granted while resenting my success. "You planned this," I said quietly. "The whole trip was designed to exclude me." "It wasn't personal," Dad said, but his tone suggested it absolutely was. "We just needed space," Mom added weakly. Beverly stepped forward one more time, her green eyes cold and satisfied. "We're done pretending we're one big happy family, Margaret. Some of us have moved on." The cabin door felt heavier than it should have when Beverly closed it behind me. I stood on that porch for a moment, listening to the sound of their laughter resuming inside, and realized that the family I'd spent my entire life loving and serving had never really existed at all. I sat in my car outside that cabin for 30 minutes, crying harder than I had since childhood. Not just because of the betrayal, but because of the sudden clarity about what my life had really been. Every sacrifice I'd made for them, every boundary I'd ignored, every time I'd prioritized their needs over my own, and this was how they saw me. as someone they tolerated out of obligation, someone whose success made them uncomfortable, someone they were better off without. The mountain air was cold and thin, and my breath fogged the windows as I tried to figure out what to do next. I had no Thanksgiving plans, no backup family dinner, nowhere to go where I'd be wanted. That's when I remembered Harvey Thompson. 2 months earlier, Harvey had handled the legal work for my condo purchase. He was a sharp-eyed attorney in his 50s with silver hair and a reputation for thorough investigation work. During our closing meeting, he'd mentioned his other services, the ones that went beyond real estate transactions. "I do investigative work too," he'd said while we waited for the title company to process paperwork. "You'd be surprised how often family members take advantage of each other financially. I helped a client last year whose brother had been forging her signature on business documents for 3 years. At the time, I'd laughed and said my family would never do anything like that. Harvey had given me a look that suggested he'd heard that before. "Family can hurt you the worst," he'd said quietly, "because they know all your weaknesses and they know you'll forgive them." Now sitting outside that cabin with my heart broken and my illusions shattered, Harvey's words echoed in my mind. I found his business card in my wallet and dialed his number, not even caring that it was 8:30 on Thanksgiving evening. He answered on the second ring. "Harvey Thompson." "Harvey, this is Margaret Thompson. You handled my condo closing a couple months ago." "Margaret, of course. What can I do for you? You sound upset." I found myself pouring out the entire story. The excluded vacation, the cruel words, the years of feeling like I was never quite good enough for my own family. Harvey listened without interrupting, making occasional humming sounds that suggested he was taking notes. "Margaret," he said when I finished, "I've seen this pattern before. When family members treat you this callously, there's often more going on behind the scenes." "What do you mean?" "I mean, people don't usually burn bridges this dramatically unless they're hiding something they're afraid you'll discover. Your father's business, your sister's lifestyle, your parents' finances. Have you ever looked closely at any of that?" I realized I hadn't. I'd been so focused on building my own life that I'd never questioned how Beverly afforded her art supplies and frequent coffee shop visits while unemployed, or how my parents managed to support her while also maintaining their own lifestyle. "I could do some investigating," Harvey offered. "Purely preliminary, just to see if there are any irregularities. Pro bono, because no one should be treated the way your family treated you today." "Oh, would that be legal?" "Everything I investigate would be public record or information you have a right to access." "Your family made you a target tonight, Margaret. Don't you want to know why?" I thought about Beverly's satisfied smirk, about my parents' inability to look me in the eye, about the calculated cruelty of their exclusion. "Yes," I said. "I want to know the truth. I'll start first thing tomorrow morning. Give me 24 hours. I drove home through the night, my mind racing with possibilities I'd never considered before. Had my family's treatment of me been about more than just personality conflicts? Was there something they were hiding, something that made my presence inconvenient or dangerous to them? Friday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. I spent the day cleaning my condo, obsessively trying to keep my hands busy, while my brain spiraled through worst-case scenarios. Harvey's call came at 3 o'clock that afternoon. "Margaret, you need to sit down for this." Harvey's voice was grim as he laid out what he'd discovered in just one day of investigation. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee growing cold in my hands, taking notes on a legal pad like this was a business meeting instead of the destruction of everything I'd believed about my family. "Let's start with the financial irregularities," Harvey said. "Your sister Beverly has been depositing regular amounts into her personal checking account for the past 18 months. The money comes from Thompson Plumbing's business account. Maybe Dad's been paying her for administrative work or something." That's what I thought initially, but the paperwork tells a different story. The checks are signed with your father's signature, but they're authorized by documents that bear your signature. My blood went cold. "My signature? I've never signed anything for Dad's business." That's what I suspected. I compared the signatures on these authorizations to your signature on the condo paperwork. It's close but not exact. Someone's been practicing your handwriting. The coffee cup slipped from my hands, shattering on the kitchen floor. Beverly, it gets worse. The total amount transferred over 18 months is $43,800. But that's not all. I found email exchanges between your parents discussing what they call Margaret's guilt money. Guilt money. They've been planning to ask you for a substantial loan to fund Beverly's gallery opening. Based on their communications, they believed your guilt over being more successful than Beverly would make you an easy target for manipulation. I thought about all the times I'd offered to help financially, all the gifts I'd bought, all the ways I'd tried to prove my worth to them. They'd been seeing it as evidence of exploitable guilt rather than love. Harvey continued reading from his notes. There are also social media messages between Beverly and her friends where she refers to you as our personal ATM machine and jokes about how desperate you are for family approval. Each revelation felt like another punch to the gut. What else? The Thanksgiving trip wasn't spontaneous. They've been planning it for 6 weeks specifically as a test to see how much they could hurt you before you fought back. Beverly's messages suggest they wanted to see if they could break your spirit enough to make you more compliant for future financial requests. I stared at the legal pad where I'd been taking notes, but the words were blurring together through my tears. They planned the cruelest thing they could think of to make me more vulnerable to manipulation. Margaret, this goes beyond family dysfunction. What Beverly's done with the forged signatures constitutes fraud and forgery. What your parents have done by knowingly receiving stolen money makes them accomplices. This is criminal behavior. What are my options? You could file criminal charges, bank fraud, forgery, conspiracy. Beverly would likely face jail time, and your parents could be charged as accessories. Alternatively, you could pursue civil remediation, demanding full restitution plus damages for emotional distress. I walked to my living room window, looking out at the city I'd worked so hard to build a life in. 24 hours ago, I'd thought my biggest problem was being excluded from a family vacation. Now I was learning that the people I'd loved most had been systematically defrauding me while planning to manipulate me further. I need the weekend to think about this. Of course. But Margaret, there's one more thing. Based on the timeline of these financial irregularities, I suspect your family knows their scheme is about to be exposed. The Thanksgiving exclusion might have been their way of testing whether you'd investigate their behavior. What do you mean? They expected you to come home cry and try harder to win their approval. Instead, you hired an investigator. They're probably starting to panic. As if on cue, my phone began ringing. Beverly's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer that yet, Harvey advised. Let's see how desperate they get. Over the next 3 hours, my phone exploded with activity. 17 missed calls from Beverly, 12 from Mom, 8 from Dad. The voicemails progressed from confused to panicked to desperate. Beverly's first message, Margaret, where are you? We need to talk about yesterday. By her 5th message, please call me back. I think there might have been a misunderstanding about some business paperwork. Her final message left at 11 p.m. Margaret, I'm scared. There are some things I need to explain before you do something we'll all regret. Mom's messages followed a similar pattern, but her panic seemed more focused on reputation. Margaret, honey, please don't do anything rash. We can work this out as a family. Dad's messages were the most revealing. Margaret, call me immediately. There are some accounting irregularities I need to discuss with you before anyone else gets involved. I saved every voicemail, forwarded them to Harvey, and went to bed with my phone turned off for the first time in years. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I met Harvey at his office downtown, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The leather chairs and polished oak furniture gave the meeting a gravity that felt appropriate for what I was about to do. I've prepared several options, Harvey said, spreading documents across his conference table. Criminal charges, civil suit, or a combination of both. What feels right to you? I looked at the papers that would destroy my family's life and realized I felt nothing but relief. No guilt, no second guessing, no desire to protect people who'd spent years planning to exploit me. I want full criminal prosecution and civil restitution, I said. I want them to face the consequences of what they've done. Harvey nodded approvingly. I'll file the paperwork this afternoon. Once the bank freezes, the business accounts, things will move quickly. By 5 p.m. it was done. Thompson Plumbing's accounts were frozen pending investigation. Beverly's personal accounts were seized. The police had been notified of the fraud allegations. I was home by 6, heating up leftover Chinese food when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Beverly standing on my porch, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Margaret, please, we need to talk." Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, her usual confidence completely gone. "About the $43,000 you stole? Or about how you planned to manipulate me into giving you more?" Her face crumpled. "I never meant for it to go this far. I was scared I needed money for supplies and rent for a studio space. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed." "You forged my signature 18 times, Beverly." This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. I know it was wrong. But I panicked when the amounts got bigger and Mom and Dad said you'd never find out because you never pay attention to Dad's business anyway. So all 3 of you were in on it." "Not at first. But when they found out, instead of making me stop, they said we should just ask you for a loan. They said you had so much guilt about being more successful that you'd give us whatever we needed." I leaned against my doorframe, studying the sister I'd protected and supported for 28 years. "And the Thanksgiving trip? That was my idea," she whispered. "I thought if we hurt you enough, you'd be so desperate to fix things that you'd agree to anything. I thought we could get you to co-sign for my gallery space and maybe help with Mom and Dad's mortgage, too." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. They'd calculated exactly how to wound me most deeply. Service of stealing more money. Where are Mom and Dad?" "In your driveway. They're too ashamed to come to the door." I looked past Beverly and saw both my parents sitting in Dad's truck, looking smaller and older than I remembered. "The accounts are frozen," I told Beverly. "The police will probably contact you tomorrow. You should get a lawyer." "Margaret, please. We're family. Can't we work this out privately? You told me I wasn't family anymore. Remember, you said I was just someone you're related to." She started crying harder. "I didn't mean it. I was angry and drunk and scared about the money situation." "Which part didn't you mean? The part where you stole from me or the part where you planned to steal more?" My parents finally got out of the truck and approached my porch. Dad's work clothes looked wrinkled and slept in. Mom's usually perfect hair was disheveled. "Margaret," Dad said, his voice hoarse, "we can fix this. We'll pay back every penny with interest. Just please don't destroy our family over money." "You destroyed our family when you decided I was someone you could steal from and manipulate," I replied. "I'm not the one who made those choices." Mom stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "We raised you better than this. We raised you to forgive family, to keep problems inside the family." "No," I said, and my voice was steady and strong. "You raised me to be your victim. You raised me to accept being treated badly because I was supposed to be grateful for any attention at all." "We never meant to hurt you," Mom pleaded. "You spent 6 weeks planning the cruelest thing you could think of to do to me. You absolutely meant to hurt me." Beverly tried one more approach. "What about when we were kids? What about all the good times? Doesn't that count for anything?" I thought about the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager I'd helped with her homework, and defended from bullies. Then I thought about the woman who'd smirked while excluding me from Thanksgiving, who'd spent months forging my signature and planning to exploit my love for her. That little girl grew up to be someone who could look me in the eye and tell me I wasn't family anymore. I'm grieving her loss, but I'm not going to let her ghost continue hurting me. I stepped back into my house and started to close the door. "Margaret," Dad called out desperately, "we're your parents. Doesn't that mean anything?" I paused in the doorway. It means you should have loved me enough not to steal from me. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt, listening to their footsteps retreating to the truck. Through my window, I watched them drive away, and for the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten: peace. 6 months later, Beverly pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery. She received 2 years of probation and was ordered to pay full restitution plus $20,000 in damages. My parents lost the family business and had to sell their house to cover legal fees and their portion of the restitution. I used the settlement money for therapy and a trip to Europe I'd always dreamed of taking. I joined a hiking club and made friends who liked me for who I was, not what I could provide for them. I started dating James, a mechanic who'd never heard of my family drama and didn't care about my job title or my bank account. A year later, I hosted Thanksgiving for my chosen family of close friends. We cooked together, laughed together, and shared what we were grateful for. No one calculated what they could gain from anyone else. No one kept score of who contributed what. No one questioned whether anyone else deserved to be there. Beverly sent a letter last month requesting reconciliation and promising she'd changed. I filed it in my desk drawer without reading it completely. Some bridges once burned are meant to stay that way. I learned that real family doesn't exclude you from important events, then punish you for standing up for yourself. Real family doesn't see your success as something to exploit, or your love as something to manipulate. Real family doesn't plan your emotional destruction as a strategy to make you more compliant. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is learning who people really are before it's too late to protect yourself. I lost a family, but I found something more valuable: my own worth, my own boundaries, and my own power to choose who gets access to my heart. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. When people show you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time. And remember that walking away from people who hurt you isn't giving up on family, it's choosing to be part of a family that actually values you. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family members? How did you know it was time to walk away? Share your story in the comments below, and please hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about finding strength in difficult situations, and share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they deserve better than being someone's emotional punching bag. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worth isn't determined by how willing you are to accept poor treatment from people who are supposed to love you. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.